Hi, everyone, and welcome to FSI, the podcast. I am your host, Jennifer Lattes, and we are going to have conversations worth having today with Dale Cameron from the Doric Vault Companies. Welcome, Dale.
Glad to be here. Thanks for
Glad to
having me.
have you. Glad to have you. Before we go into your new role, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I've been in the funeral business a little over 30 years, being a funeral director, embalmer, general manager at funeral home locations in Nashville, Alabama market, Georgia market, and so forth. Been with Vault Companies. First time I was with Wilbert back in the early 2000s as their business development manager for the Southeast Division, and then later on went to work for Piedmont Precast, which is an affiliate of Wilbert out of Atlanta, Georgia, and I was the vice president of sales and marketing for them, and then had a brief stint back with them again at corporate Wilbert, and now I am with Doric Products as their business development manager. So it's been an exciting career. So enjoy
Well,
it.
congratulations on your new position.
Well, thank you.
And how long then altogether would you say you spent with Wilbert?
Approximately, let's see, with the working for the corporate office and also working for a licensee, that would have been about 18 years.
Okay. Wow, that's a while. So tell me, since you've shifted over to Doric, what has been something that you notice is different about the two brands?
A little bit, things that's a little different, and this is just kind of on a smaller scale. It's Doric Product is made up of a board of directors, which is a lot of family-oriented business people. So I kind of like that background. It's kind of more of a family-oriented operation from the previous from being at Wilbert. But Wilbert was a great company to work for. A lot of great people, a lot of great licensees, and Doric brings the same thing. There's a lot of good people that operate their business and try to, their goal is to, at the end of the day, to help the family in a time that, that we don't like to go through.
Okay. And I noticed that there is, because I worked for Wilbert previously too, right? And they called the setup with the vault with the lid or the cover, not lid, right? Because you put a lid
There
on
you
the
go.
top, but not on your mom, right?
That's right. On
I
your
do
homework.
remember you place the cover to
Base.
the side so that the vault actually forms its seal above ground and lowers down as a unit. And I believe I saw some
Correct.
imagery from Doric. Do they do a similar setup?
Correct. Yeah. They just call it something different. We just basically call it a vault setup, but same type of, how they place the cover on the base, where the base is a little bit above ground and it has a nice seal. So yeah, it's pretty similar to it.
And the personalization options that you offer on top of the covers, I saw that, which is nice. What areas, and I'm not sure if you're already aware of this, but what areas would you say tend to be your biggest customers geographically when it comes to
Well,
grills?
yeah, as far as the Doric goes, we've got a very good operator in the Carolinas. Jim Woods does a great operation, uses personalization probably 80% of the time on products. So if he really stands out, and then of course I live here in the Nashville, Tennessee market, and Ron Benton, who's the owner of the dealer here, does a really good job on personalization. So I'm sure there's others. I'm fairly new. Started in February, so still getting to know who the dealers are. There's a gentleman out in Utah, Lane. He does a very good job too of doing personalization.
Nice. And then I also saw that you all offer the metal vaults as well.
Correct. Yeah, that is one thing. I guess when the question you asked earlier about some of the differences, but that's probably one of the main differences that Doric provides. As far as concrete liners, but they also offer the metal vaults, which our competitors do not offer. So it's nice having that option when you're out there dealing with funeral homes or cemeteries. We offer the concrete plus we offer the metals, so it's a good option to have.
No, that is quite clever. And I think in my mind, when I think of a metal vault, I think Clark's was the brand
Yes.
for those.
Right.
So it's
Right.
kind of synonymous with that. So yours is not the same as a Clark's, but they're basically the same type of a product, would you say?
Yes, they're pretty much the same for us because The metal is measured in gauges, so we kind of use the same philosophy with ours, and some, are galvanized, non-galvanized, powder coated, non-powder coated. So there's some differences, but we make a good product. Manufactured made here, of course, in the U.S. In Corbin, Kentucky, is where we manufacture our metal vaults.
Interesting. And then just for the listeners, as a reminder, vaults are an outer barrel container. So they are not to be confused with a concrete box or grave liner, which also serves to keep the ground from sinking over a grave site. But the barrel vault has a sealing mechanism, which differentiates it. And then with your metal vaults, they actually seal from the bottom. Would you like to describe how those work in case folks listening aren't familiar with that?
Of an air seal. So basically what you have the base of the metal vault, which is pretty flat. Then you have a dome that clips to the base there. So that basically what you're doing there is just kind of an air seal. It's how that happens. Different, of course, from a concrete burial vault, which has a seal in the cover and is to the base. But that's how the metal vaults are sealed. It's kind of an air seal.
Families aren't just Googling funeral homes anymore. They're asking ChatGPT. They're asking Gemini. They're asking Siri and Alexa. And whoever those AI tools recommend, that's who gets the call. If your funeral home or cemetery isn't optimized for AI search, you're not just losing rankings. You're becoming invisible at the exact moment a family needs you most. That's why At Need Marketing built the Virtual Visibility Solution, a curated package that combines proven SEO strategies with tactics developed specifically for generative AI search. So when a family asks an AI assistant for help finding funeral service in your area, your name is the one that comes back. Get recommended by AI, be cited by voice assistants, rank at the top of Google, and never wonder if you're being left behind again. Virtual Visibility Solution is built just for funeral homes and cemeteries by a team that understands this profession inside and out. Visit atneedmarketing.com to learn more and book a call with the At Need team today. You know what else is interesting as we talk about the methods of closure? And it made me think about green burial or natural burial options that families, because there's no one specific way to do a green burial, right? You can have, as Darren Crouch talked about this with passages, is there hybrid versions and there's different versions. But when I think about how like the metal vault has that air sealing from the way it's created, aside from the fact maybe that it's metal, it would actually be good without a base for like a green burial or a person who's desiring to have their body on the soil, but they still have to supplement it. Because concrete, they just turn a bottom upside down for using concrete, correct?
Yeah, correct. Same method.
And I feel like the metal would almost be safer to use instead of flipping the bottom of an OBC upside down.
Yes, and it's because, just think about it, some of our aluminum metals that we make is a lot lighter. You're talking roughly 600 pounds versus concrete that's going to be 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 pounds. So metal is safer, and that's a lot of times why people use metal vaults too. It's because of the demographic, where the cemeteries are located. I mean, it could be a hilly cemetery, or it could be hard to get into and out of a church cemetery that might have fences around it. That's a lot of times why people will use a metal vault, because it's easier to get into the space.
And does that close above the ground and get lowered down as an entire unit?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it can actually, I've seen it done, actually the base, and they have to get in there. But most of the time, 99% of the time, it's done above place in the grave.
So for those listening, just a thought when you're looking at how to create a natural burial experience in a cemetery that does require an outer burial container, metal may be worth entertaining. Just throwing that out there. So that's really interesting that you carried both of those products. And I know when I was with Wilbert, we would do a lot of marketing materials and creating displays for funeral homes. How does Doric provide support to its clients that are offering your products?
Very good question. So we have something similar. We have miniatures that we call, that's a replica of the traditional outer barrel container. So we offer those to our customers. Plus, we also offer graphics. That's been pretty successful for us in displaying just graphics and not miniatures. The turnaround sometimes is quicker putting up a graphic than getting the miniatures in. But the consumer still likes to touch something and see. Mm-hmm. So we offer, like I said, the miniatures, a replica of the traditional burial vault, and of course the graphics that we offer. And then we of course have catalogs also that's provided. And if people have a website, we have ways of getting that information to them so they can have that on their websites, our product line.
And do you guys go in and offer any type of training to the funeral homes that offer them?
Yes. So we go in and just give the basics training of what a burial vault is. It's like how you said earlier, defining what an outer burial container is. We do that. Go through the production side of how a vault is made, presentation, how do you present it, things of that nature. So yes, to answer your question, we do offer training for our funeral directors and for people at cemeteries too.
Nice. And I like the fact you use graphics, because I will say one of the things that I used to see that I was like disappointed with is when a funeral home that had a traditional selection room would have the miniatures of the vaults on the ground, like sitting on the floor. Nobody wants to buy something that's like sitting on the floor like that, right? Like there's got to be a better way. So I think with the graphics, you're able to accommodate limited space. And I'm assuming you have like options for the funeral homes that have gone to a virtual selection room.
Correct. Yes, we do.
Yeah. And are your miniatures made of concrete, or are they made of a lighter weight material?
They're made of a lighter weight material, like styrofoam. Yes. For the concrete, when they had that made out of concrete, that weight was right about 100 pounds or a little bit more than that. And now the weight is under 40 pounds.
That's so nice. Those were so cumbersome.
Yeah.
And they just didn't look as nice potentially as what you could do with something lighter weight.
Yeah. So these are a little bit easier to move around. And actually it's safer too when you put it on like this.
Yeah, if you drop one of those on your foot, like there were going to be curse words and you're going to have a moment. So yeah.
Yes. So the lighter, we make out of the styrofoam.
And do you provide marketing materials in other languages? So like if you have firms that serve a predominantly Mexican-American population, or just, where Spanish might be of use, do you help support them with providing materials that are in other languages as needed?
I'm sure we can. I don't want to quote that, but we have a pretty good marketing department and we do everything in-house. So I'm pretty sure that question is asked before. And I'm sure that the gentleman that we have and lady that operates our marketing department can turn that around pretty good.
Nice. Okay. So you can tailor things. It's not like a cookie cutter approach to all of the locations you serve, would you say?
Correct.
Now tell me a little bit about Doric and the columbaria that you all sell as well, some of the urn options for placement.
Definitely. Yeah, that's another exciting product that we're offering to our dealers is the columbariums. And we manufacture those in Corbin, Kentucky, same places where the metal vaults are made. A lot of options. We have a gentleman by Doric Merritt, who's the guy that kind of oversees that department and has a very good background on columbariums. So we're able to take pictures of where the cemetery might be, where they're thinking about placing it, and give them options and so showing them, the number of units they might need to have if it was a 24, 48, or even larger than that. So the turnaround is pretty quick. I mean, they just Doric invested a new machine on cutting the metal, which is actually aluminum that's inside of the niche. So it's not all granite, and then the outer parts of granite, which is pretty easy to put together. We sat there probably about 2 months ago and went through a training that was kind of neat, if you want to say, looking at the process and like, wow, that was a pretty quick, 2 or 3 days. They would cut the metal, had the granite, put it all together, and it was ready to be shipped out, by the end of the week, because we try to keep good stock of granite there at the location. And then the new machine that we have, the cutting process, can cut certain areas. It's actually cut it in half of the time. And so it's pretty impressive.
That is. And I like the fact you had the benches. Like when I was looking and browsing through some of the offerings, the space is taken into consideration, right? So if you can't build out, you can build up and that sort of thing, which honestly, I feel like with cremation being here to stay, or even alkaline hydrolysis where you're still creating a similar
Hmm.
output. You
Hmm.
know, the idea of having a niche or niche offerings and within a cemetery, especially if their space is limited for ground burial, those are all good opportunities to kind of turn profit in a set piece of property.
Right, because you start to see some of your rural areas that are now looking at the columbariums because, I mean, there was a certain area where you think would be like maybe a 30 to 40% cremation rate. Some of these areas are above 50%. So these the smaller cemeteries are going, how could we need to have an option here?
Hmm.
So, our product is something that's economical for them, and like I said, a pretty quick turnaround to get it installed. And the installation part, if the cemetery has, a foundation already put in and so forth, you're talking our units can be delivered already pre-made, and the setup is you basically set them on the foundation and they're ready to go. So,
Nice.
yeah,
Now, do you all also create ossuaries?
we can actually the some of the units that we make, the ossuary can be inside of the columbarium. So yes, we do.
And for those listening, an ossuary is like a scatter garden of sorts, but oftentimes it's underground. And the ossuary itself has a portal or an opening where the cremated remains would be introduced, or the alkaline hydrolyzed remains, whichever. And then they would basically go into almost a communal garden of sorts. And
Mhm.
sometimes those are options for folks that are looking for maybe they don't want to invest in a niche, but they're looking for permanent placement. So those are sometimes found in a cemetery as well. Okay. Now tell me a little bit about one of the challenges I think when you're dealing with like burial products is you have to trust the crew that goes out and does the installations, right? You can have a
Yeah.
fantastic product, but if your crew can't deliver and set up and execute properly, that can be a challenge in some areas. So now with you all, with your company, do your crews sometimes do opening and closings of the gravesite as well as setup, or do you just exclusively have your crews go and do your vault installations?
The different areas of the country. So some dealers offer both the service of opening, closing graves, and then also doing the setup. So it's different in different areas. Some people just do the service side of it, and some of the dealers do both. They do the opening, closing, and the service
Okay.
side.
So there's a very significant amount of collaboration then with your local funeral home
Oh,
providers, cemeteries, all those folks. There's a lot of good communication and
oh,
collaboration with them.
definitely.
Very good. And then I know some burial vaults are heavier than other ones. And do you have any that require any special equipment, or is there anything different in how they're presented or closed based on weight or other, materials
No,
that are composed of it?
yeah. Well, really, the only one thing is, I mean, sometimes you might, on your larger units, you might have to have longer straps that go on the lower device. And then, I'll go back to, talk about our metals and so forth. Sometimes you have to have an extension for the lower device if it's a pretty wide unit. I mean, we we made one that was, I believe, what, 54, 55 inches in width. So that was pretty large. But that's another thing too. We we've had special requests, as far as someone either that's larger or even taller.
Hmm.
Okay, we had this not too long ago. I think it was an NBA basketball retired older whatever, and he was like 7 foot. So we actually manufactured a metal unit that, I mean, it wasn't the width of it, is the length, because they had to have a special casket made
Wow.
for it. So, and then the turnaround for our metal vault was the same way. They gave us the specs, and we were able to get it to them within a couple of weeks, probably less than that. So.
That's really
So
good.
yeah, it's good to have that option because there's so many different requests that we get sometimes, as far as either a concrete or a metal. So
And I think sometimes too, when we think about like sizes of people and how they vary, sometimes it's a matter of, okay, what can I put them in that's pre-existing versus what can I provide to them that would actually be tailored to them. And I don't think you have a lot of flexibility with product like what you just described. So that's actually quite interesting.
yeah, it's a good option to have. It gives you don't it's it helps the funeral director and also the cemetery, and if they run into situations like this, they've got some options.
And now and I'm not in any way trying to sell metal vaults for anyone who's listening, but with the metal ones, are people able to buy, like cemeteries buy and store them on site,
Yes.
like buy them in,
Yeah.
okay, which is, I mean, granted, you can do that with like concrete liners and whatnot as well, but I would think storing the metal ones, because now those are, do you stack those or do you not stack those?
No, we do not stack those. They're stood up.
Okay.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think that's important for people to realize. Once upon a time when I was in Florida, I worked for a firm that introduced the polypropylene vaults in
Hmm.
Florida, and they wanted us to have those, offer those to the families. And the minimum one was like this black one. They had little
Hmm.
clips. You'd have the base on the lowering device, and then you'd put the top on it. Well, what was happening is the cemeteries would buy multiples and stack them, and they're out in the
Hmm.
Florida sun. And then what would happen is when you go to put that cover on top of the base, it would be warped out and you're trying to like
Yeah.
force it into the clips, and it was like the worst thing. But I think people
Right.
assume based on the shape, oh, we can just stack these, but it compromised the integrity of the actual product when it came time to use it. So I would imagine
Mhm.
with the metal, obviously you don't want them scratching each other and whatnot, but you could probably stand them up easily if they're lightweight.
Yeah.
So
Right. Right. It's kind of the same method if with funeral homes when they store their caskets. I mean, some of them might have them on a church truck, but then you can stand them up, and that's the way the metal vaults are stored, or they're stored. But I mean, if you want to put them on a rack, you're more than welcome to. But you save more space if you just stand them up.
and I've seen them in selection rooms where you'll have it underneath the casket that maybe
Yes.
complements it. I've seen that a
Hmm.
lot in the traditional
Hmm.
selection room.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the Doric has a more familial feel. And I was curious, when we look at a company, and I reference Wilbert only because that's the one that comes to mind as a
Hmm.
practitioner.
Hmm.
However, I'm not meaning to shun any of the other brands or companies out there. But when you look at a company like Wilbert, they have their hands in education by virtue of the Pierce colleges. They have their
Hmm.
hands in fluid production from Pierce Chemical Company. They also do when I was with them, they did side projects with the concrete where they would do
Hmm.
things like septic tanks or
Hmm.
construction projects and things like that. So they had multiple things kind of going on at the same time. Now with Doric, do you all have multiple things that you are a part of your company, like other brands that are kind of parented in the same way? Or do you also do any concrete projects beyond the barrel containers?
Well, our dealers do. A lot of our dealers, like I always say, when you're pouring concrete, most of the dealers, just like either a Woolworth dealer or Trigard dealers, they're doing other concrete products. So to answer your question, yes, our dealers are out there, doing the barrel vaults, but they might be into the septic tanks or to retaining walls, etc. So yeah, they're being diversified, and we're looking at the same thing going forward. Just like the columbarium's been a little bit diversified, but then go outside of the market and look at other projects that might be beneficial to our company.
Well, I mean, it makes sense, right? To have other, then you're not, basing it on the ebb and flow of mortality. You can be doing these
Hmm.
other projects that are potentially more consistent or supplemental.
Hmm.
So that's
Right.
always nice, right?
Yeah.
You're
Well,
not
we
like
know. I mean, it's
you're you're not waiting on wedding season if you're the event planner, right? You're just like, oh,
right.
we got something going on all the time, which helps
Yes.
lead to sustainability. Um,
Correct.
so with this new role and the forecasting and just your own vision and how you see things kind of playing out in the future, what do you think as far as sustainability with the shift over to cremation and other options potentially, how do you see Doric remaining vital and strong in the coming years?
Well, I'm going to go back to the columbarium side of things. I mean, that's putting our best foot forward. I think that's something I don't I know that's going to be real beneficial to our company. Okay, because that's something that, as far as your ROI, I mean, it's pretty good, the turnaround. So I think that's going to be good. And also, where you mentioned about the cremation market, is that we're going to be putting our foot forward, offering more training to our dealers, and then the dealers can offer training to their funeral homes and cemeteries, because we really can't ignore this cremation side of our business. We need to be more aggressive, offer more training, and so forth. So I think we're going in. I know we're going in the right direction as far as our company to grow it. Look at areas that maybe we're not penetrating. That's where we need to be, and that's part of some of my job is to look at parts of the country here in the U.S. and Canada and say, hey, let's look at this area here. We're really not penetrating where we need to be. So, in my experience and my knowledge base and people I know in this business, been in it for 30 years, I have a pretty good contact base.
Well, I would imagine that's a long time. 30 years in funeral service is like, dog years, I feel like. So
Oh yeah.
you've got like over 200 years worth of contacts and dog years
Oh
and
yeah.
dog years. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's an exciting career. So
Now let me ask you, as far as with the columbarium, do you all do any work for pet cemeteries?
not that I know of. It's ironically you asked that question because that came up in one of our meetings a couple of weeks ago, and I think we have some of our dealers are actually looking at that. They're trying to get more involved with pet cemeteries because we know some people spend more money on their pets than they do.
Hmm.
So as a question, yeah, I think we have some of our dealers looking.
Well, I could even see where like your urn vaults or your child containers could be adapted to serve the pet cemeteries. And I'm actually writing about that. In Korea, they have funeral homes for their animals. And one of the trends that I see is that people are having less children. And so they're associating more of a value to the pet within the family in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of opportunity, I think, within
Oh, definitely.
the pet care, the pet
Yeah.
death care area there. Now, do you guys do any type of memorials, headstones, and things like that? Or is it strictly the columbarium and the cemetery projects?
It's strictly just the columbarium and benches right now. If we get if people call and need something, we can get it. So,
Okay.
yeah. So our concentration is on the columbarium, but we can, if someone needs a monument or something like that, we can.
Okay, very good. And then I wanted to ask you a little bit. I noticed that Doric, I did my research, so I know it was founded in the 50s, in 1955, and it has a Greek influence in the naming of the brand and the products. Do you know anything about why that is?
I do not, but I need to research that, and it sounds like you've done that research. So
Well,
if you
it
want
clicked. It clicked because I was preparing for our conversation and I noticed it started to make sense, right? Like even in your logo, you have like a Grecian style column, right? And then you have all the naming. And I think that might have been just from the original people that created your company. They wanted to have maybe too because of the idea of strength and longevity when you think of like a Greek piece of architecture or something like that. I just thought that was really fascinating. And as I
yeah,
looked at the products, I started to see the trend of the names having some
hmm
type of Greek influence. So I thought that was kind of
right,
fascinating.
yeah, that is pretty fascinating.
See, that was a fun fact for you guys listening. So
There you go.
now tell me, if you have a provider, let's say you have a funeral home or a person that's interested in entering the death care space and they want to become a licensee with Doric and they want to be
Mhm.
able to sell your products where they are, what would that process look like?
Well, the process. So here's something a little bit different. We don't call them licensees. We call them dealers.
Okay.
Dork. And in the process, we have to look at the territory. And majority of the U.S. and Canada, the territories is pretty much taken up. So there's not too many options. We're not signing up a lot of new dealers because most of the territories are already taken.
Yeah. Now, when a dealer gets ready to retire, are they able to sell it to someone else? Do you all have any oversight in that process if a dealer wants to do something different?
Yeah. And that's one thing too that I'm trying to help in the future too. If we have a dealer that's looking at retirement and needs some, advice or maybe I can come to them and say, hey, I know this person that's kind of next to you that might be a good candidate if you want to sell it to them and get those two together. So, but we try to get involved with it because we want to make sure that whoever's getting involved with it kind of has a little bit of a background in the funeral business.
Okay, so it's not a Domino's Pizza franchise where you're just like, oh, hey, I see a nice location. It's not like that at all.
No. Most of the dealers, with everyone, with us and with Wilbert and Trigard. I mean, they pretty much have all the markets covered pretty well. So.
Now, how do you maintain like a level of quality amongst, you have dealers spread out. So how do you provide like a quality assurance standard process so that you know that your dealers are, no matter where they are, consistently delivering like a certain level of service or product? How do you guys test that or check it?
Well, paying visits to the dealers. I mean, we got myself and a couple other guys that, periodically we will visit the locations and kind of make sure they're up to par. I mean, it's, we offer a product and a nice brand. So periodically we're making visits to the plants. With, I think, a question you're asking or a statement about, like the CSRs, the guys out in the field want to make sure that how their equipment's looking and so forth. Matter of fact, I'm working on a little binder.
Mm-hmm.
Say, hey, here's some guidelines to look at to make the service a little bit better. And the same thing with the manufacturing process, just to say, hey, maybe if you do it this way, you can save time, save money.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we just try to periodically see the locations.
Well, that's nice too, because it's efficient, right? So if you have one location that's just rock star location, instead of another one that's underperforming, trying to reinvent a wheel or start from nothing, you guys are able to go, hey, this is what has worked over here. Mm-hmm. These are some practices that you may want to incorporate, or some changes you may want to make that would increase your ability to provide better service or whatever it might be. So they have you all as a resource and support.
Right.
And I think that's important.
It is, because it goes a long way, because if you have somebody that's doing something and being very efficient with it, it's nice to share with the other dealers, because they want to know these things. Because at some of the meetings we've had in the last few weeks, you can tell where people are going, hey, that's a great idea. I didn't think about that. So, and then these days and times, you got to make sure you're keeping your costs down and being efficient. So it's good that we're out there, that we can now offer advice and take people's ideas to help other people be more efficient.
Now, do your dealers have a shared space where they can talk with each other, like any type of group where they connect with each other, or no?
The only thing we have, we call dealer meetings. We have one in the spring that we just had a few weeks ago, and then we have one in the fall meeting where we all come together and we share ideas. We have, guest speakers will come in and talk about, certain industry practices or topics. So we offer that. And then if we're, working on something, like columbariums, we had a meeting in Corbin, Kentucky. We brought dealers in to show them, the process of how to promote it and things of that nature. So, so we do collaborate together throughout the year.
Okay. Can you tell me if you, from your point of view or perspective, do you think that the increase in fuel costs or anything economical that's happening has impacted your own costs and prices?
As of now, it hasn't. So, but if it continues, it probably will, just because, plastic is a petroleum-based product. So it, I don't want to say yes right now, but if things continue. But
you're obviously keeping an eye on it, I would assume.
Yes, we are.
I think a lot of people, they equate like the issues in the Strait of Hormuz and things like that with what we see predominantly as individuals, which is fuel, right? Our gas prices, and I would assume potentially crematory fuel and different fuel could be impacted, but we don't recognize sometimes that there are ingredients in other products that are also, touched by these things that are happening.
Right. Because just think about concrete, for instance. You got that product, cement has to get to the plant somehow. Sand has to get there somehow. So aggregate has to get there somehow. And how does it get there? By a truck that has diesel in it.
And that's not lightweight stuff you're hauling around.
No.
So there is that.
Yeah. So.
And then if you do have anything imported, which it sounds like you all pretty much make and manufacture and distribute your products from here within the U.S., would that be correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Because I know and I don't know if this is still in place, but like recently China and India did a compressed schedule where they were doing less production because of fuel costs and challenges they were having over there. So that less output means potentially less importing of certain products you might need or whatnot, of availability.
Correct.
Now, where do you all get your urns from?
We have different suppliers, Terry Bear, McKinsey. And then we make some of our own too. An area there in Marshall, Illinois, which is sort of our headquarters. So we do make a couple of our own units.
It sounds very much like you all are not smaller scale, but like you said, there's more of a familial feel to how your company operates and is made in comparison to maybe some others. It has maybe a warmer feel. I like dealers versus licensees. That was a go. I'll add that one to my vocabulary toolbox as well.
Yeah, I had to add that one to mine too also. So
lid and cover took a moment. And then what was funny is when that got brought to my attention, I was like, oh my gosh, you're so right? Like sometimes we say things, we don't even think about it. And then later it's the connotations and you're like, oh, that makes sense, right? We put a cover over mom. Okay.
Yeah, right.
So little things. Was there anything we haven't talked about or anything up and coming within the company that you want to share with our listeners?
No, I think we've covered about everything as far as our product line, our service line. Like I said, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all trying to service the family. And I think, as I've noticed, just in conversation with some of the dealers that I've met so far, they're doing the best job they possibly can, which is nice. They're trying to reinvest back into their companies so they can help the families. So, and that's important for all we do.
Awesome. Well, I will share in the show notes a link to your website. It has a lot of good information, not just on the about and who the leadership, board of directors, and things like that consist of, but it also has good supplemental material about the products. Like there's a great columbaria brochure in there. So there's some nice marketing, like informative materials in there that a funeral home or cemetery or individual can download if they would like to also. So I will be sharing that in the show notes. And I want to thank you for your time today, Dale. I'm happy for you in your new role and I'm excited to see what you do with it over there.
Yeah, I'm excited. And thanks for having me today.
All right, this is a Kates-Boylston production. Thank you all for listening. And again, see the show notes for additional information.